Hello, aspirants. Welcome to PW OnlyIAS. I'm here Harpreet Singh with the daily analysis of the Hindu from 6th of November 2024. Let's begin with today's analysis. The topics that I've taken for today's analysis are the private property judgment. We had basically analyzed this aspect yesterday also. We will deal with what the judgment has been. Then Madrasa Act judgment. Okay, now please remember that over here, all these articles mentioned are very important from your prelims as well as mains. So what is mentioned in mains does not mean that it cannot be asked in prelims. So please analyze these things and understand it very well. Next is India's space economy, STEM research. Then you have the Nagula Chavithi. Then you have the winter parliament session. Then you have Tardigrades. Then you have SCZ and India at 2036 Olympics. So we will be discussing all these topics. Let's start with the interesting journey of the analysis. Okay, main topics. First, this is important from the perspective of General Studies Paper 2 as well as General Studies Paper 3, which is with respect to the private property decision that has been given by the Honorable Supreme Court yesterday. It says that state has no right to acquire every private property. It cannot acquire every private property. Now we'll have to see why the statement has come up. Now, let us go back again with reference to what we had done yesterday also. Why did this case basically came up with the Supreme Court? Now, before I begin, let me show you one article of the Constitution of India. It says, Article 39B says, state that the government should direct its policies to ensure ownership and control of the community resources are distributed for the common good. Community resources. So the question came, does the private property over here can also be a community resource? Or in that case, because this statement is stated there, can the government acquire the private property also? So there has been debates in the High Court and also in the Supreme Court from decades related to this particular topic or the article that is mentioned in the directive principle of the state policy. We all very well know that directive principles of the state policy are directly not enforceable, but it is an advisory that is given by the Constitution that the state should keep in mind while implementing the laws. They should keep in mind the directive principles. Now, so it is over here the question of community resource. Does the private property also comes under the community resource and it can be acquired by the state for, let us say, for respective purpose, whatever, let us say, distribution among the people. So these things did come up. So now let us move back from where this issue basically started. Now what happened is, if we take the example of Mumbai, where this issue basically came up with, there is a concept of cessed property that we had discussed yesterday also. So those properties which are basically constructed or built, let us say prior to, let us say in the lands, let us say prior to 1969, or the land that was there prior to 1969, which was given to certain people for development purposes. And over there, certain development that had taken place, the people, let us the owners, used to pay certain amount of cess to the government. And because the cess was being given to them, they were known as cessed properties. Now see here, the ongoing case before the Supreme Court stems from the challenge to the 1986 amendment to the Maharashtra Housing and Area Development Act 1976 by the proprietors of the cessed properties. So first, cessed properties. Cessed building in Mumbai refers to the properties that are part of a specific category of housing that have been constructed on the land owned by the government, but have been given to the private individuals or entities for development. So that means a specific set of housing, the land was previously owned by the government. It was given to some private properties so that they could build over there, right? For they could build the building or the housing thing. And in turn, certain cess was paid. Now see what happens. These buildings are usually old structures that were built before the introduction of the Maharashtra Housing and Area Development Act 1976 and have been regularized through the cess system. So that means they had to pay certain amount of cess. Now what happened? Please see. See here, enacted in 1976, MHADA aimed to tackle the issue of dilapidated buildings housing impoverished tenants in Mumbai. MHDA imposed cess on the occupants, directed to the Mumbai Building Repair and Reconstruction Board. Now, see, I said 1969. So this 1969 concept came because this act was first of all came into being in 1976. Now, for the repair purposes also those buildings, the cess was imposed on the people, right? So the people used to pay, or let us say in a way, the person who was given the charge of basically construction and development of the building, in a way had to pay certain amount of cess. Now what happens, please remember, in 1986, invoking Article 39B, Section 1A appended to MHAD, enabling the plan for acquiring land and building and transferring to the needy people and the occupants of such lands. Now what happened, please remember, the land was given to certain people to build over there, and then people were occupying that land, right? Now what happened, though the people were occupying that land, they did not own that let us say an apartment in that building housing complex. What did MHADA did? It basically transferred that to the people who were needy, who were staying over there. Invoking which article of the Constitution? Article 39B. That means they thought, okay, MHAD, that means the government in a way, you can say. It transferred the let us say the housing complex or the properties or the flats within that complex to the people who are needy. Now what will happen? The people who were given the land for construction or building of that, the propertiers said, how come the MHADA has given to those needy people? That is a private property because they had given it, that because the government had already given it to them for the development. So how can they be transferred to in the name of needy people? That is not allowed. So what happened? Please see. The Property Owner Association in Mumbai contested the MHADA in Mumbai or Bombay High Court, violation of the properties, that is right to equality under Article 14 of the Constitution. So they said, how can you take the property and give it to the needy people in the name of Article 39B? That is not allowed. So what happened? What happened? The association, what happened later on? The Bombay High Court was in the favor of the decision that was taken by MHADA. Now again what happened? The association was angry with the fact that the Bombay High Court has agreed, or that means Article 39B over here is fine, and they agreed, Bombay High Court agreed to that. So the association of the propertier association basically went to the Supreme Court. And then the case started moving there and discussions on various things started going on. Now please understand, what we need to understand over here is the case always in this, all the matters that is going on, yesterday also the judgment was given, was revolving under, or let us say around, Article 39B, whether that says that government should direct its policies and ensure the ownership and control of the community resources are distributed to the common good. Is this statement valid to the private property also, and specifically in this particular case of cess property? Because we realize there is a very complex situation here, where on one hand a government land is being given to a private propertier and for, let us say, certain housing development, and from that basically a lot of people are staying there, and a certain amount of cess is being imposed after the enactment of the MHADA Act in 1976 because the buildings are old. Now the association say because it has been given to the private propertier, it is their land, and on the other hand MHADA in 1986 transfers them to the needy people who are basically in that building. And the cess was basically taken so that the MHADA can work on, let us say, restoration of those buildings also. Now what is going on is, the propertier association says you cannot transfer to this building because you had given the land to us. Similarly, please remember that there is a judgment that is over here. Let us see here. Justice Iyer in the state of Kerala versus Ranganathan Reddy case. Please remember, what is going on in the Supreme Court? So ruling in the constitutional reference essentially undergoes several decades ago of the Supreme Court jurisprudence. That is a line of judgment holding that both the public and private resources fall within the ambit of the material resources of the community. This is a statement which yesterday the Supreme Court was discussing, whether what was stated by Justice Krishna Iyer's doctrine. Justice Krishna Iyer earlier had stated, when the case went to the Supreme Court also, that, see here, that the material resources fall, that whether it is private or public, can be treated as a community resource. So that means in a way, state can acquire it, transfer it, whatever it be their discretion in this case, for the purpose of the common good. So that means the action that was taken by MHADA in transferring to the needy people was justified earlier on according to the Justice Ayer's doctrine. Now again the case was going on. People again appealed that this is something that how can this private property be taken by the government like this only. So the yesterday's judgment that came is, yesterday's judgment that came is 9-judge constitutional bench of the Supreme Court on Tuesday ruled that state can't classify every privately owned property as material resource of the community. So that means every private property cannot be said it is a material resource of the community. For the good of the community, you can acquire it. No, because then there'll be very subjective nature. You can acquire anything for that matter. So it was a 9-bench judgment in which 8 people favored to this judgment that state cannot acquire it. The decision means that the state cannot take over the private property solely to distribute for the community welfare. Just because we want community welfare and we want to take up the property and distribute it, that will not be acceptable. The majority opinion authored by the Chief Justice of India, D.Y. Chandrachud, clarified that directive principle of state policy under Article 39B of the Constitution, which mandates the state distribution of resources, cannot be applied to all privately owned properties. So let us understand a summary of this. When MHADA is transferring the property to the needy people, and by the saying that because Article 39B allows them to transfer, the property association says it is not allowed, it is privately owned. So the case goes on, Justice Ayer's doctrine comes. Before that, Bombay High Court had categorically ruled that it is fine, Article 39B is there. Then obviously we see that the dimension comes into being that whether this private property falls in the community resource dimension or not. Then we see that again the appealing of the case is going on in the Supreme Court because there were disagreements. Repeated appealing also going on in the Supreme Court that this is not a valid argument. So that is why when the judgment was given yesterday, it basically says that what Justice Ayer's doctrine had been, or what the Bombay High Court had stated earlier on, is not valid in today's time. See, the just CGI D.Y. Chandrachud also said that the judgment of Justice Ayer, or the doctrine which we known as Justice Ayer's doctrine with respect to Article 39B, that is basically related to certain form of economic structure which is completely based on socialism. Now today's time things are very different, right? So you cannot say that just for the purpose of community welfare you take up a private property and distribute among people. Then the people will start questioning then what is the purpose of the private property if it can be taken for just for the means of welfare of the people. Because welfare of the people is a very loose term in a way. It can be subjective in nature, and government can acquire any property for that matter. For that example, just building a road, they can say we are acquiring a property. Then again that would violate various other laws also. So that is why they said that the state cannot take away the private property just for the purpose of the community welfare under the Article 39B, which is a directive principle of the state policy. So this is what the judgment was. And again, this question can be asked in your examination. Understanding the logic over here is very, very important. Let's move ahead. Topic 2, General Studies 1 and 2, page 1. Now see, yesterday a judgment with respect to Uttar Pradesh Madrasa Act was stated, and we will be seeing what that basically is because a lot of constitutional articles are involved over here. So what is the situation? What is the case? What is the judgment? What did the High Court say on this, and how did the Supreme Court basically reverse the judgment? That is very important over here. See that. First of all, the act that is being contested or debated is this particular act. Uttar Pradesh Board of Madrasa Education Act 2004. Now please understand why this act was passed by the Uttar Pradesh government, so that you could recognize the madrasa as a formalization of education takes place. Along with it, not merely education of religion, but also other subjects are also taught. And proper recognition is there. So that means formalizing the madrasa system was the aim of this particular act. So see here, the act aimed to regulate and govern the functioning of madrasas, that is Islamic educational institution in the state of Uttar Pradesh. It provided a framework for establishment, recognition, curriculum, administration of the madrasas across the Uttar Pradesh. So that means, okay, religious education is given, that is fine. But along with it, what was important? Religious instruction being given. So what was important over here is that a framework should be there. A way it is governed should be there. It should be regulated also. Again, it is an educational institution. So it has to be regulated. So that is why this act was formed. So now what happens is, under this act, the Uttar Pradesh Board of Madrasa Education was established to oversee and supervise the activities of the madrasas in the state. Now, what does this board have? Establishment of the UP Board Madrasa Education. This board predominantly composed of the members from the Muslim community, responsible for preparing the curriculum and conducting the examination from the various courses. Courses, let us say for Maulvi, that is equivalent to class 10, to Fazil, which is equivalent to the master's degree. So now, this board was basically like we have the CBSE board and all board. Similarly, there's a UP Board of Madrasa Education, which is basically responsible for preparing curriculum and conducting the examination. This was established. Now, please understand why this act was basically there, or let us say in 2004 passed, because the number of madrasas in Uttar Pradesh is very large. And the government wanted that along with the education of the religious dimension they are doing, they should also be involved in certain other educational aspects, other subjects should also be taught, and certain formalization should be there, a standardization should be there. That is why, let's see certain facts with respect to, according to the data processed by the Center to the Parliament on February 2020, as of 2018-19, total of 24,010 madrasas in India, more than 60%, 14,000 and 14,528 were in Uttar Pradesh. Just imagine, out of the 24,000, close to 14,000 madrasas are in Uttar Pradesh. So these included 11,621 recognized madrasas and about 1.69 lakh students sat for the UP Madrasa Education Board. So that means, please understand, do you realize that lakhs of students were studying in madrasa? So that is why recognition and regulation of this, and obviously proper systematic manner in which examinations are held over it had to be in a way regulated. That is why this Act of 2004 was passed. Now this is the act that is there, which is being debated. Now see, after having studied that, now let's move ahead. What is going on? A PIL was filed in the court, in the High Court, by a lawyer. A PIL was filed by a lawyer saying or contesting this act, the act of Uttar Pradesh Board of Madrasa Education Act of 2004. The lawyer filed a PIL and said that, see, this act is against the constitutional spirit. How is it against the constitutional spirit? He says that it is against Article 14, where right to equality is basically guaranteed. Then he says it is against Article 15, where prohibition of discrimination is being guaranteed. It is against Article 21A, right to free and compulsory education for children between 6 to 14 is guaranteed. Along with it, they say these are centers which do not meet the requirement of the quality education. So in madrasas, he said there is no quality education given. They are going against the constitutional spirit also, and religious education is being given there. And that is again going against these principles of the constitution of the articles. Now what happened? When the PIL was filed, over here, the Allahabad High Court was basically hearing this case, the PIL that was filed. And the Allahabad High Court struck down this particular act. That means invalidated this constitutionality of this particular act. They said that this act is wrong. Why? There are certain reasonings of the Allahabad High Court. Let us see that, and how Supreme Court basically reverts that. We'll see this. There were certain grounds which were given by the Allahabad High Court, because of which this UP Madrasa Act 2004 Board Act was basically struck down. The reason, see, first is secularism. What is Allahabad High Court saying? See here. Allahabad High Court says that compulsory for a student of madrasa to study in every class. Islam is a religion including all the prescriptions, instructions and philosophies. Modern subjects are either absent or are optional. This is something very important what the Allahabad High Court said. It held that government has a duty to provide secular education and cannot discriminate by providing education based on religion. So what did the Allahabad High Court say? It says, see, in spite of the act being passed, the education that is given is religious education, right? And the other subjects which we thought would be introduced, these are either optional. That means people want to opt study or not. It is up to them. Or either they are absent. So along with it, religious education is being given. So what did the Allahabad High Court says? That it is against the secular spirit of the Constitution of India. So they said this act is wrong. First parameter on which the Allahabad High Court basically reasoned this is against secularism. Next, right to education. The High Court, these are official documents of what the courts have been. So please see this very carefully. Whenever I'm putting these headers, what I'm explaining, when you understand it, you can write it in one line also. There is no issue. But these are why I'm using these articles over here. These are the official documents of what the courts have said, right? So the High Court held that government was violating the right by denying quality education in modern subjects. The state cannot hide behind the lame excuse that fulfilling its duty by providing traditional education on a nominal fee. So they said again that it is violating the right to education where the guarantee of quality education was given, let us say, till the primary level. But over here, what is saying? By providing religious or traditional education at a nominal fee, you cannot just say that the education is provided, because modern subjects, according to the High Court, are not being provided over there. Along with it, the quality, or at least the guarantee of quality education under the right to education is not being provided. So again, this act should be again scrapped. Next, conflict with the central law. The Allahabad High Court says, it stated that only universities or institutions deemed to be university under Section 3 of the UGC Act can grant degrees. Only these are the those are the universities or deemed to be universities can grant degrees, not the others. No other person or authority, including the madrasas or madrasa board, can confer any degree, which is again, according to the Allahabad High Court, going against the central law itself. So these three major dimensions are given, saying that it should be scrapped. Next, this case then went to the Supreme Court, right? Because the High Court has said that you need to scrap this law. So this case went to the Supreme Court. Now what did the Supreme Court said? Supreme Court's judgment said no. The Supreme Court basically upheld the constitutional validity of the Act of 2004. What did the Supreme Court say? It made very, very intricate analysis and observations of the judgment that were given by the High Court. Now see, it differentiated between religious education and religious instruction. Now, this is very interesting over here. We generally, while speaking also, we will not differentiate what is religious education and religious instruction. But Supreme Court made it very categorical that we need to differentiate between both of them. What did the Supreme Court say? First, the madrasas impart religious education or religious instruction. This was a question that was there. Now, please understand, Supreme Court drew a distinction between the two. Court held that religious instructions such as compelling attendance for religious worship was not allowed in education institution under Article 28 of the Constitution. That means religious education is being given in a place and you have to compulsory attend, that is not allowed according to the Constitution. On the other hand, but the purpose of religious education or education about religion was to teach students about different religions or bring communal harmony. That is why they said that in this case, you cannot simply tell that the madrasas goes against the secular credentials. It is not wrong over there in that case. So this is what Supreme Court held. Again, religious instructions basically mean that you have to compel a person to attend that religious instruction that is being given in educational institution. That is not allowed under Article 28 of the Constitution. But when we talk about the aspect of religious education, that means education about religion, that Supreme Court held is basically aimed at building communal harmony, not going against the constitutional spirit or the idea of secularism. These are very minute details that Supreme Court observed. Next thing, Supreme Court reversed the High Court's judgment. See, Whether the High Court was correct in striking down the entire act or whether it should be limited to the decision of a specific provision allowed by the government to regulate the functioning of the madrasa. So what happened? On October 22nd also, Chief just observed that to throw out the Madrasa Act is to like throwing a baby out of the bathwater. He said that the state government has the power to make rules under the act to ensure education is imparted to more secular in nature. So that means they said that whatever the arguments that were presented by the Honorable High Court of Allahabad does not hold merit. There is full aspect where the madrasas can impart obviously the aspect of religious education, because it is again the constitutional spirit said that it builds up communal harmony. And it is not going against the constitutional spirit, neither it is going against Article 14 or 15 or Article 21A. With respect to quality, yes, every institution, whether it is government also, that requires quality upgradation. That is what the Honorable Supreme Court met. Along with it, please remember what the Supreme Court said. If this Pandora's box is opened, then the question with respect to Gurukul, with respect to, let us say, Patrician Brothers colleges and schools, all this thing will come. Because remember, in every institute, one or the other form of prayer is being done which might be associated with one or the other form of religion. This is what the Honorable Supreme Court said. So that means simply on this fact that certain religious education is being imparted, for that the act be invalidated, is again the Supreme Court said is wrong. So this is what is a judgment which is important for your perspective from your examination. Let's move ahead. India's space economy. This was again GS3, page 10. A small article was mentioned with respect to size of the India's space economy. S. Somnath calls for investment. Now see, this is important. Those small articles are there. This can be asked in your examination. Now please let us see this. Space economy. What is space economy? According to the OECD, it is basically a full range of activities and use of resources that create value and benefits for the human being in course of exploring, researching, understanding, managing, and utilizing space. The term space economy covers goods and services produced in the space for the use in the space. So that means for all the economic dimensions related to goods and services associated with the space sector comes under the space economy. Whether you are researching a certain thing, whether you are creating a satellite, whether you're creating a rocket, whether you're creating, let us say, some launch vehicles, whatever be the case. Because you realize that space companies like SpaceX, companies like we see Amazon also working on, let us say, the space program. Now that is generating a lot of revenue for United States. Because private investment again are based on profit, but again state-of-art research and facilities are there over there. That is why the government wants that the private industries should also come, investment should be there, something that was completely restricted to ISRO or the government of India for that matter. That is why investments with respect to the space is also becoming very important. So this is an official document from the government of India, which has stated about certain things which I've already covered in the following articles, which they said Indian space economy is expected to grow from around $8.4 billion to $44 billion by 2033. So I'm taking the original documents from government of India just for the reason because the questions are picked up from here. Yeah. So first understood what the space economy is. That is why government is focusing on even having startups in the case of related to space. Again, there are certain restrictions right now. Not every activity is where FDI is allowed with respect to the space sector. But what all sectors that are allowed? Obviously, the startups can be there because the same scenario has been seen in like the Western world can be replicated in India also. Now see, what are the drivers of the space economy? What drives the space economy? Particularly when we're talking about India, with respect to India. See, decrease in the launch cost, rapid and large drop in the launch cost of satellites and rockets, tenfold from the past 20 years. So again, the launch cost have decreased. Price of data and connectivity expected to drop by at least 10% and increase, and the demand will increase by 60% by 2035. Commercial innovation, example, improvement in the resolution of Earth observation technology will again be a driver for the space economy. Diversification of technologies, a rapid diversification like space tourism is coming up. Earlier you used to go to Novelty, earlier you used to go to Manali, Shimla. Probably next time you will go to space, go to Mars. So how will that go? Because then there are certain clients, rich people who can basically afford to go to Mars also. So for them also, again, such type of tourism can be there, which is again being observed in the United States very often. Cultural awareness. Now, the cultural awareness and general enthusiasm for space in recent days is also a major interest, with people are getting involved in the space sector, and people are now working on startups related to space because of this, because it is very profitable, also innovative, and they can have a early advantage over the other companies. Catalyst for expansion. Various industries were drivers and beneficiaries of this three things are very important over here: harmonization, increasing the ease of usability, education and awareness of the technology. So the major important with respect to catalyst to expansion is that the industries are themselves involved into entering this sector. That is what is the most important thing. Next is new space entrepreneurship. What does it mean? That means we can have various business models with respect to space tourism, along with it newer companies coming up. In India, we do not have such major companies like we have the SpaceX in United States and other companies like Amazon also, and Virgin Galactic also entering this purpose. But in India, we need such. That is why this environment is being created, that they can be very helpful in the future space research of India. Along with it, boosting the economy. Space economy in India, please understand, the share in global space at current, please understand, it is around 2% only of the total global space economy. India's space economy has a potential to reach 44 billion by 2033, which is about 8%. So that means right now it's 2%. It can reach to 8% by 2033, where basically has a potential of 44 billion. Obviously, it will increase after that exponentially also, because first the platform is provided, then the rise is relatively easier. Size of the India space economy, as we have said, around $8.4 billion. The downstream services market, primarily the communication and data application, accounts for 80% of the total space economy, which is basically the private contributor, where we can benefit a lot. The upstream market, that is satellite and the launch operations, are primarily controlled by the government. Obviously, certain liberalization with respect to them can come. The private sector can also be involved in those avenues also. The compound annual growth rate, please understand that with an average compound annual growth rate of 8% is what is expected. If government is also supporting, along with it, there is industrial investment in the sector. Rise in the number of startups with respect to space. In 2014, there was just one startup. In 2023, there have been 189 startups. And the investment in the Indian space startup has increased to 124.7 million in 2023. Next is increasing role of private sector, a very important, like SpaceX, Virgin Galactica, Blue Origin, Arianespace. All these are there. They can obviously collaborations come in there where Indian startups, and it will be very beneficial for the Indian space economy. Rise in the satellite launches. There is an increase in the number of satellite launches by ISRO. Just imagine that India has earned close to 174 million from the launches of the foreign satellites. So this is again a very interesting phenomena through which India is earning through the launch of the foreign satellites. Challenges, what are there? Please understand the space debris. According to NASA, there are more than 100 million pieces of space debris. Again, the problem is that when you launch your satellites, the space debris is there. Along with it, the debris present there tends to harm your satellites and the space tourism and the vehicles that are going to go there. Vehicles, space vehicles, not your cars. So that is again a major concern. Next is lack of regulatory ecosystem for startups. The space startup in India are yet to take off because of the absence of the regulatory clarity. So how things have to be regulated, what is allowed, what is not allowed, red tapeism, all these things tend to hinder it. So proper policies, proper mechanism, proper standing operating procedure are something little bit lacking in India right now. Cyber attacks, again, a major problem. We realize that you had seen the articles earlier also. India is again very prone to such attacks. India, recently the report by the Home Ministry also came that India is prone to so many attacks, and that means when we talk about this space, it is again dependent upon against information technology, communication. Hacking of any such thing is basically attacking the critical infrastructure of the country. That is one of the major risks. So we have to be secure from the perspective of cyber security also while building this. Minimal share in the global economy. Right now, if we see, India has a minimal share of 2%. What is estimated by 2033 by reaching a 44 billion goal is again little far off, because other countries are also rising at a very exponential rate, particularly the countries like United States. So right now it is a very minimal contribution. So we have, that is itself a challenge also. Next, human space flight expertise. Again, right now we do not have any expertise as such. We are again aiming at Gaganyaan. It will take place. Again, still we do not have the expertise as the case of United States, Russia for that matter, France, or let us say UK have. Hazard to astronauts' health. Again, the space environment can be lethal without the correct protection and equipment and precaution, because something that India is right now not aware of in the perspective that it has not experienced it, though those are astronauts are being trained by Russia. Again, these things have to be, again, if made indigenously, these equipments and all will be very helpful. Again, we have to depend on these equipments from the foreign countries. We are not manufacturing it on our own. These are also dependencies that are there that are basically challenging the space economy, right? Okay. Next, coming to rising STEM research demand revitalize. This is again editorial there. Please understand. We'll briefly do what is STEM and then go to the editorial. Please, STEM basically means science, technology, engineering, and mathematics, right? Again, an acronym which has been taken from the United States. Science, S is science, T is technology, E is engineering, M is mathematics. So that means these are very important dimension with respect to research and development in the newer fields, particularly when artificial intelligence, quantum computing, these things are coming up. Now, when we read this article, we need to understand this article, though appears STEM research, is not primarily STEM research. It is talking about the core issues which the universities are facing. It is not. The article will appear like rising STEM research demands revitalizing education. So the focus is not STEM here. The focus is on revitalizing or how to reinvigorate the spirit of education that is there. So it is basically recommending you reforms in the education system. Why I mentioned STEM? Because the STEM was written here. That is why we have seen an article over here. Now see what is the article presenting here. See, the writer over here says that the IITs and the universities have expanded. Earlier we used to very few IITs, right? Now you see the number of IITs have increased tremendously. The government aims to have an IIT almost in every state. Again, the process is going on. Similarly, the number of universities are also expanding. Now, what is going on over here is that the people, in many cases, you would be seeing it recently in IIT Bombay also, 33% people did not get even placed. Right? Similar scenario was in IIT Delhi also. Just imagine this is the condition of the top tier education institutes. So what the article is basically saying here, that in spite of expansion, let us say talking about the top institute, leave alone the ones which are B grade and C grade. B grade, if you categorize them into categories, you'll be seeing that there is a basic skills are lacking which is required by the industry. So the people who are graduating, their basic skills are lacking. They are not readily prepared to work even in the industry. As we move ahead, they said that research institute are themselves raising the concern, the quality of people who are coming for higher education. They say that possibly they have not got some work, or let us say not get placed. So this means, as they take it as a means of continuing with their education. So that quality stuff of candidates are also not coming is also a concern that is raised by the research institutes. Then we say issue of faculty shortage. We see that faculties also over here with respect to these top institutes along with the other institutes are lacking, which are required for creating a proper atmosphere for, let us say, proper pedagogy and research environment is lacking there. As we move ahead, the article basically talks about the issues that are prevalent. First says quality of training. They say that the quality of training with respect to the teachers that are there is very dismal, ranging from the top tier institutes to the lower level institutes. Second thing is saying that in most of the cases, they are saying that the people who just graduate, they themselves have made the teachers or the faculties there. Now, what happened? They themselves are not right now prepared for a correct pedagogy and the way of teaching, and they just graduated. And they become faculties in large number of institutes, predominantly the private sector also, and that basically hampers the quality of the teacher or the faculty that is there. And that means that is why they recommend needs upskilling, outreach program, proper faculty training is very important. Next is quality of student. Now see, I'll give an example overhead mentioned. IIT Bhubaneswar has a 60 seats for computer science and engineering. On the other hand, you'll be realizing various private institutes have massive and hundreds the number of seats for computer science and engineering. Now just you can imagine the quality is obviously compromised. That is what they're seeing. The quality of the candidates who are doing that course also are not basically up to the mark with respect to whether that course is for them or not. Next, as we move ahead, we realize that the article mentions that we need to reform the institutes or institutions in India by differentiating them into two categories. First is teaching institutions and other research institutions. Teaching institution TI, research institution RI. And the ones with a large number of undergraduate courses should be treated as teaching institutes. Now, what happens is when you are differentiating a teaching institution from a research institution, then what happens? You have to stop the faculties of the teaching institution from being forced to do a excess of research. What happens right now, please understand. What is happening right now, the faculties who are in the institute, their duty should be to teach also, but they're forced to do research papers, and also their emphasis on the research papers and those patents and all is so emphasized that they are not able to give good emphasis on the pedagogy or teaching style. That is their main goal with respect to their teaching. So the role of the faculties and teaching institutions should be teaching with the best of their ability with proper pedagogy. In the research institutions, the people or the faculties over there should be focused on research. The professors or researchers should be there. Now what happens, this system should continue till we realize the quality of the people, because see, it is not about candidate being weak, it is about the faculty puts a good emphasis or a time or gives good time to the student, they can also do well, because they are themselves occupied with research, so they're not able to give time to the students who are weak. So this process of teaching institution, research institution classification should continue till the time the students who are in the lower tier of institutions, their quality also improves. Now, they say that collaboration needs to be there. Collaboration means collaboration with various institutes need to be there. With this process, what will happen? Pedagogical skills, that means the way the teacher teaches will also improve, because the focus would be on teaching. Along with it will happen that even the teaching institution, research institution should have tie-ups, so that guest lectures thing happen, people have an environment where the students and teachers have a relationship with the research institution. The research institutions can also visit the teaching institutions and learn from them. So what are the three things that will happen if these collaborations are there? It will lead to student quality improving. It will enhance the teaching quality and revitalizing institution themselves. Along with the student transfer programs and all these things, as we have in the Western society also, in the Western education, can be adopted. So major emphasis is that the focus of the teachers and the teaching institution should be teaching and not being forced to do research. And the ones in the research institution should be focused on research, because that is their primary goal. That is what is being suggested over here. Let's move ahead. Prelims, there is an article over here, a photograph, Nagula, Chavithi. So what it is basically, please understand. It is a Hindu cultural religious observation, which is a worship of the Nag Devta, basically. And let's see. The Nagula Chavithi is a festival of worship of Nag Devta, serpent gods, mainly a women festival. Again, this can be asked in your prelims also. Mainly a women festival. Nagula Chavithi is observed by the married women for the well-being of their children. Well-being of their children. During the Chavithi festival, women keep a fast and observe Naga Puja. Devotees offer milk and dry fruits to the Sarp Devta at the Valmikam or Puttas, that is snake pits. That means that the snake pits of water is milk is kept. On the Nag Chaturthi day, Ashtanag, that means 8-hooded cobra, is worshipped. Right? So this is again the thing. Along with it, there is certain other article with this only. Again, this basically is in reiteration that Nag Devtas are basically worshipped over here. It is celebrated on the 4th day after the new moon of Kartika Masam in Hindu lunar calendar. Again, this year the festival falls on Tuesday, November 5. Nagula Chavithi holds particular significance for the married women. Again, take blessings from the Nag Devta. Celebrated across India. Now, Nagula Chavithi is especially important in the Andhra Pradesh and the parts of Karnataka. Here's everywhere you need to know about the Nagula Chavithi thing that is basically being studied over here. So what it is, basically it is the worship of the Naga Devta, important from the married women, so that they basically fast also, they worship the Naga Devta also, they feed them with the milk also, and take blessings for their children. So this is again an important dimension. Clear? Okay. Next is Parliament's winter session from November 25, GS2, topic 2, page 4. Certain dimension that you need to study. Adjournment, it is a suspension of the sitting for a specified time in a parliament. Adjournment synodine, that means termination of a sitting. Sitting that when the people are sitting there over there and they say that we are, let us say, adjourning the sitting right now. Synodine means basically they do not tell when again they are going to meet. Prorogation, officially ending of a session. Now session, please understand one thing. Session, let us say there is a winter session, there is a budget session and a monsoon session. Within these sessions, every day there is a sitting. Now, suspension of that sitting is known as adjournment for a specified time. If meeting again is not told, that means sitting with an indefinite period is known as adjournment synodine. Prorogation means a complete session is ended. That means a winter session ends or a monsoon session ends. Dissolution, that means end of the life of the house. That means Lok Sabha is dissolved for a new election, let us say, or the no confidence motion is passed against the government and it is passed. This is the dimensions, that word you should know. Now comes the aspect. Parliamentary sessions in India, we again know summoning of the parliament. Again, it is done by the president. Definition of a session. A session means a period between the summoning and the prorogation of the house. Maximum gap between sessions is not more than 6 months. Again, the period spanning between the prorogation and the recession is known as recess. And there are 3 sessions: budget session, monsoon session, and the winter session. This is going to take place. This is again important. We have the tardigrade, topic 3, GS3, page 4. Now, what are tardigrades? Tardigrades are resilient creatures known as water bears or moss piglets. Very small, microscopic. They are microscopic 8-legged animals, typically about 1 millimeter or smaller, classified as free-living invertebrates in the phylum Tardigrada. So you need to have a little bit idea. These are something that you should revise because these can be asked in your prelims also. These are prelims topics. These are tiny, boneless bodies supported by hydrostatic skeleton with hemolymph, a fluid basically filled compartments, equipped with specialized mouth part called the buccal pharyngeal apparatus, as we see this, right? Known as extremophiles, capable of surviving in extremes of climate, extreme cold, extreme heat, require a thin layer of water around their bodies to prevent dehydration. Found globally from torrential, marine, freshwater environment. They're found almost everywhere in almost all the ecosystems. Potential application, they can be used in sports exploration because they are resistant to various radiations, nuclear cleanup, cancer treatment, testing of the human cells because of their characteristics. Their resistance to the radiation is again a very important dimension because they're able to survive in such environment. So we can basically research on them, how they're able to survive, and we can use them as guinea pigs in a way for space exploration and for nuclear cleanup and the cancer treatment. 7 developers seek government approval of cancellation of SEZ. Now, what are SEZ? Please understand. SEZs are special economic zones designed to design zones offering duty-free operations and fiscal concessions to boost investment and jobs. India's first EPZ. So these were EPZs were basically export zones that were there so that export could take place. A newer word is SEZ for them, which have been basically formed under the SEZ Act of 2005, right? Now, what are the major facilities? Duty-free imports are here. Tax exemptions are here. External commercial debt can be given to a great extent. Single portal approvals are here. That means in a particular SEZ, when the companies are there, you will be seeing that they are like alien land. That means they are treated as different from the other places where the industries are set up as a means of export. So that means if that product manufactured in a SEZ again comes to the mainland of a country, it will be taxed. But if it is, let us say, produced in that SEZ and exported, there are tax exemptions that are given there. So these are specially focused on export. And again, because of that, economy will boost. Again, because of that, jobs will be created in the regions. So these are specialized zones, right? Challenges, there are various unused land. Though SEZs have been declared, the lands in various regions have been unused. Multiple models, diverse economic models complicate the integration. Competition with ASEAN and even China have very mastered this technique. Though we had the EPZ first declared, but China after that adopted a similar model and did very well. And what happened is that we are the ones who are facing problems of land use, red tapeism, attracting investment, all those things are there. We had encouraging MSME and access to financing is one of the major dimensions through which SEZ can improve. India sends letter of intent to the host 2036 games. Please understand, we just have to understand this, that initially when India was thinking of hosting it, it is known as an informal dialogue. Now when letter of intent is given, it is a continuous dialogue because it will go to the International Olympics Committee. After that, because it has gone, now is the targeted dialogue, which will require a formal bid. And let's see if India is able to bid well. And then in 2025, the city will be declared who will host the 2036 Olympics. How this is beneficial? It is going to boost the economy. It is going to boost jobs. It is going to create a state-of-art environment. Obviously, it is very beneficial. Again, the challenges are a lot of investment will be required. And obviously, along with it, one has to balance the aspects of, let us say, the social expenditure that is there. So these things are there. As the things come up, let's see what happens positively. If India wins this bid, it will be very beneficial for the country also. So let's move ahead. So these are the MCQs. Question 1, explanation. Question 1, explain. Question 2, explain. Question 2, explanation. Question 3, explanation. Question 4, explanation. Question 5, explanation. So this was the analysis of the Hindu from today's newspaper. Hope you liked it, enjoyed it. Let's continue with the sessions tomorrow. All the best and Jai Hind.